So I got there today. I talked to the med tech. I'm like, how's my dad doing today? She's like, what did he do for a living? He invited all the managers into his room today because of this project that he's working on. And he was sitting down for dinner. And I went in to sit with him. He's like, oh, Gina, I think he was presenting a seminar. Like he used to do seminars for financial planning. And they would have food there. I asked my mom that later. And he's like, we need to speak and I want to get up and talk. And I kind of got the gist of that. And he's like, does everybody have enough water? He was using a loud voice that could be heard across the room. Like anyone with
Wow.
Parkinson's, yes, their speech is diminished and everything. Because when staff told me that he called everyone in for a meeting, I'm like, is he in a good mood though? They're like, oh yeah, he's been really chatty today. And so I sit with him and he's like, we got to make sure everybody has enough to drink. And I'm like, oh my goodness, he's giving a speech. We're possibly at like a financial seminar. And I'm like, okay. And I'm like, well, let's not everybody's here yet, Dad. And he was standing up. I think he was standing up to talk. And I'm like, you know what? Let's wait till everybody gets here. Not everybody's here yet. And then he started, can everybody hear me? And he's talking real loud. And he's like, does everybody have enough to drink? And don't know if you like the food. We can change that if we need to. And
Wow. Back in time.
and so I'm like, okay. And so I'm sitting next to him, like, let's wait till everyone gets here. So we probably need to let people eat their food before we talk. He's like, okay, okay, okay. And then he's saying some more things, and then he was about to introduce me. Apparently, I was the keynote speaker, and I'm like, I don't know what I don't know what to say. I was so thrown off because this is I mean, it's great that he's in this world or wherever, and he thinks he's giving a speech, and he thinks all these people are part of his project. Um, and I just had to step away from it. So I'm like, I got to use the restroom. I'll be back. And I go in his room, and then I find papers all over, and I wind up calling my mom. And that's when I asked her, did you guys serve food when you did those? Because she kind of was his kind of administrative assistant, and I knew that's how he got clients. He gave these free financial seminars. I used to help send the mailings out for him, hand stamped, um, little, I don't know if they were postcards, whatever they were. I helped with that. I did that kind of work for him back when I was, I guess, in college. Um, and he'd get people to come to a seminar place and host a meeting, and that's how he get clients. This is back in the 80s. And so she's like, yeah, yeah, we'd have a dinner over it. And I'm like, Mom, he is giving a financial seminar tonight. And we both got a kick out of it.
Hello, this is Don with Focused Healthy Family, and this is podcast number 125. And today we're talking about dementia and creativity. And I'm doing this a solo intro here because right now life for us is very, very hectic, a little chaotic, and busy because we are in the midst of what we do in helping others. We are in the midst of ourselves, and that is caring for an aging loved one. With Gina having to take care of or work with her father, who is now in a memory care facility, and all the things that go on with that transition into that kind of place. And so life is quite busy. Uh, and so what I wanted to share today in this podcast is I'm going to share, we do a segment together called Ask the OT, and we did one last night. And the experience that Gina had with her father that day was very unusual, but really cool at the same time. And so I thought for the podcast today, I would share with you the Ask the OT episode that we went through last night because it had a lot of good information. It had some fun, interesting things that go on. So without any further ado, I'm going to go ahead and let you listen to and watch our Ask the OT. Take care.
Well, good evening. Welcome to another episode of Ask the OT. I'm Donald Grodoff with Focused Healthy Family, and soon we'll be joined, I believe, by Gina. But each episode you have the opportunity to ask questions of Gina Grodoff, who is an occupational therapist um, with over 30 years of experience. And she's dedicated to caring for the senior population. That's what she's been doing her work in for those 30 years. Um, her knowledge and her compassion, approach make her invaluable resource for anyone navigating this journey of taking care of a loved one. And tonight we live this. So um, when you see this and you're watching it, know that besides the fact that Gina is a professional, that is an occupational therapist who works with patients in this senior population almost every day. And uh, not only does she do that, but she's also a caregiver for her father. And so we are in the midst of this senior population. The sandwich generation is a big part of what people we work with. Sandwich generation are the parents that are sandwiched in between raising kids and at the same time taking care of a senior, aging senior. I actually am outside today. As you see, I had a fly that's driving me kind of crazy here, um, because inside is my family life, and we are still wrapping up from dinner, so it's a little noisy inside right now. Even though we have a little studio area we work out of, um, it the life is still going on, and so like I said, we are in the midst of this population. In fact, I'm actually wearing a T-shirt that Gina got from Aldersgate, which is where she works. Has been working there for I think 5 or 6 years, and um, I can read what I don't have a teleprompter, so I can read what I kind of wrote out about this. So whether you're dealing with questions about daily activities, assessing living situations, or understanding family dynamics, Gina is here to help. She's skilled in evaluating not only the current environment of your loved one, but also the future living arrangements. Her goal, to relieve the anxiety, tension, and drama that often is accompany caregiving. Something that we see, like I say, in our personal life and Gina sees every day. What the families, the caregiving families of the senior population go through when it comes to taking care of their aging loved one. It is a scenario that is tough for anybody to deal with because there's so many complexities to it. And so I'll continue on reading. But remember, being a caregiver isn't limited to professionals like nurses or CNAs or hospital staff. And that's one thing we're working on too, is helping people to understand. We get a lot of people that they take care of a parent. They don't really consider themselves a caregiver. It's just something that I do. This is something I have a parent needs my help, can't they can't live on their own, and they're living with us or with me or with whoever it is. That my in-laws are not living with me. My father-in-law is in a memory care unit. Um, but for those that are have a parent living with them, they just think it's kind of an obligation or that it's a family situation. And so they don't really consider themselves as a caregiver and think about the fact of what caregivers go through and the fact that a lot of times caregivers, they really have to take care of themselves. They can be burnt out. They can get sick. And I think there's even statistics and studies out there that have shown that a lot of times the caregiver gets sicker than the person they're caring for. So it's one of these things that we want everybody to understand. If you're in that situation where you have a loved one, a relative, a parent, maybe even a spouse especially, you wouldn't necessarily, if you had, it's part of the bond of marriage is sickness and health. Being there, you say it in your vows. So you think, well, it's just part of what I have to do as a spouse. I have to take care of my partner. And they don't really consider themselves as caregivers, and thus they 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 become they're giving it out. They're taking care of them and not taking care of themselves. And so it's really important to think about yourself and understand if you're in that situation that you are a caregiver and that there's a lot that has to be taken into consideration for yourself as well as your loved one. A lot of questions. And so that's why, Gina's always felt that it was important to to give to the community. She gives in so many ways. That's the the tough part about it. She caregives at work for her patients that she deals with as an occupational therapist, helping them. Occupational therapists are ones um, that help people back into daily living. That's, physical therapist works more with the body and physical activities. And occupationals work with a lot of physicality too, hand works and arms, and um, but their big thing is ADLs, activities of daily living, getting somebody back into the swing of daily life after they've had a stroke or they've had a head injury or they're dealing with dementia or anxiety. And she's been doing it for 30 years. So like I said on here, being a caregiver is more than just being a professional caregiver. It's a personal thing too, and we have to take care of ourselves in that place. Anyone who plays a role in caring for an aging parent, elderly relative, a friend, a spouse. Gina understands the emotional and physical challenges you face and is here to support you every step of the way. Imagine having someone to hold your hand as you and your loved one embark on this challenging journey. And challenging, I'd have to say, is a light word compared to what that journey is really like. It is a rough journey as they progress with their aging. Um, but that's exactly what Gina offers. Her personalized approach ensures you that you don't have to face these challenges alone. And that's the big part of what we are doing because we know what it's like to face these things, as a couple. Luckily, we're not alone. We have each other and we're both supportive. We both pitch into it, spending time with our relative, our father, my father-in-law, her dad, um, and and that takes a lot, and it takes a. This is where just like they say as um, when you're raising young kids, it takes a community. But kind of the same thing here, but it's harder to find that community and the caregiving person. It's important for them to ask. That's why we have Ask the OT, but it's important to ask for what you need. And, that can be difficult because you don't want to burden anybody. And, it's a lot of anxiety and stress, and you don't really want to put that on anybody else. But you really have to, at some point, be willing to ask and get help, find help. It could be at a local church. There are a lot of different associations, Parkinson's associations, um, caregiving uh, associations or groups that can support you, that can be there for you to help in any way that you need. It might be a group that'll come out and cut your grass or um, come in and help you do laundry or make some meals for you so that it take that burden off of you. So it's important to look around, to really search out for the resources that are out there. And that's where Gina and myself can help. We do individual consulting, and what Gina will do, will sit down with you and look at what's going on for you and kind of assess your situation, your environment, um, and all the things that are going on for you, and then be able to help you kind of map through them, help you like it says, handhold you through it a little bit, to know you have somebody there that you can count on to ask questions, um, guide you along. Because, one of the things I know Gina's goal is to actually write a book about all the different transitions that happen as you deal with an aging loved one. We've seen all of those transitions ourselves. The, the progression of the transition itself, when you start recognizing the symptoms and the characteristics of the disorder or disease or the thing that the loved one is going through, like Parkinson's or ADHD, dementia, Alzheimer's. When you start noticing that is a change, that is a transition because everything changes it at that point. And then there's a lot of times a certain point where they end up in the hospital. And a lot of time, like from a fall, or they bump their head, or they hurt themselves in some way, and they end up in the hospital. And of course, the hospital nowadays um, gets them in and out as quick as possible. So then, a lot of times, when they're in the hospital, when they come out, they need to get into rehab. And so you have that transition into a rehab or a nursing facility that does different kinds of rehab. And there's different variations of kind of rehab that a person needs. And again, that's where, like I say, Gina helps out a lot, is being able to kind of assess, hey, this person needs this level of rehab or this level of rehab. So you have that kind of decisions you have to make. And sometimes those decisions have to be made on the spot, on the moment. It happened to us where we were told on a uh, Friday afternoon that um, that you that one, he had to go to rehab. We were able to get him to rehab, but Monday he's being released, and so you got to find someplace. And on Friday afternoon, and weekends are closed, it's very difficult. But we'd have Gina coming on here right now, so we're going to be joining in with her as we progress here along. And oh, there she comes now. There she is. Uh, just been talking a little bit about. I slowly read over kind of what I had written out about introductions here, and just talking about all the things that are involved, what we're going through, that not only are we trying to do these for others, but we're wrapped up in this, about knee deep ourselves. And in fact, Gina just came from visiting her father at the memory care facility, and that's why she's running a bit late because, as I have found out too, you get there and you never know what's going to be.
Oh, you never know.
Yeah,
You never
and
know.
so you have to flex and adjust and try to be there for him as he needs it, and he needed it a little longer than we anticipated today. So
Well, and
anyway,
it's not what you expected. Then I discovered there were papers all over the room. So I had FaceTime my mom, like, Mom, what are these papers? And it's like, this is your handwriting. She goes, I don't know. Where do we get those? I'm like, and then there were two boxes of Band-Aids open and Band-Aids scattered. And she's like, oh, did he get into that box? Because she had sent him with like first aid supplies. So there's this box in the closet. I'm like, how would he have gotten up there? He's a short man. And then I saw a notebook where she kept record of his meds. I said, Mom, this is yours. Like, oh, is there a bag there? There's the red bag when she
the
would
red
go to
bag, yeah, I
the
saw that
hospital. Did you
yesterday.
see that? Okay. So he took
Yeah, I was
everything out
wondering.
of the red bag. He took out the Band-Aids.
Oh
There was
my.
a little granola bar. I'm like, Mom, did you keep like a snack? Oh yeah, maybe. Those paper. The papers must have been in the notebook, Mom. So I'm cleaning all that up and um talking to my mom for a while and realizing some more things need labeling. There was a new CNA on his unit, poured him a glass of iced tea, put it in front of him. I'm like, he's on thick and liquid. She's like, oh, I don't know. I usually work out there. I'm like, okay, I guess I need to put a sign on the refrigerator here. John Menzo requires thick and liquids.
Yeah.
And then So I cleaned up in his room. So then he comes in the door. He's like, oh, and he'd come back from dinner already because I got talking to my mom for so long. I don't know how long it had been, but he was walking really good, which was neat to see. And and then I'm not sure. He said, let's go. Let's, and I was like, where are we going? He's like, to the car. And you got the keys. But I managed to walk him back in his room and get him sit down. I said, you're tired, aren't you? And he's like, yeah. And I got him his recliner, helped get him comfortable. And then I was like, he's like, what's your schedule tomorrow? And I was like, oh, tomorrow I've got to take Lexi to somewhere. And I said, I can come at dinner. He goes, that's too late. I said, oh, I'll come when we're done. Okay. And he's going off to sleep. I'm labeling some things and I'm thinking I can leave with Andy Griffith on. And he kept calling me aside, asking me questions. What about this? And who's going to do that? And I'm like, okay, let's go back to the routine. They're going to give you your medicines in about an hour. And after that, they're going to help you get ready for bed. Who's going to do that? And it's like, well, I recognize Mary on the hall. I'm like, Mary's going to give you your medicine. And there, so I had to kind of go back to those kinds of things because it is important to reroute him into what's going to happen and not just say, not make up things, right? Um, and I said, I'll come see you tomorrow. And it took a couple back and forth. And then I'm like, oh, he's not comfortable in his chair. Like he can't quite communicate what he needs. And I'm like, okay, let me fix this pillow. So I did all that. I got him situated. Andy Griffith was on. I gave him a hug, said, I'll see you later. And I got out the door. And
Well, that I must. I probably pointed that bag out by accident, I guess, yesterday because I was
oh,
down doing something. I can't remember. Was I putting his shoes on or
I'll be
something?
right back.
Oh, all right. So it's back to me. Um, so you see our adventures. You see what we go through, and I now that's we're not alone in this, and there are it's getting more and more that dementia, even Parkinson's, is getting to be more and more. So, but yeah, you can see we're in this every day and going through these fun adventures at times. This was a good day. It's one of those good days and not so good days that you have as you go through this challenging journey.
Yeah,
Um,
it's I don't know where you took off. I was supposed to the plan was to visit with him, go out, get some dinner for myself, have some writing time, come on, do this call. And of course, I didn't get here till after 7, and so just went to pick my food up at the counter. Um,
that's fine. We're actually
so
doing pretty good here.
I'm realizing the importance of having these signs. My mom sent fruit with him, put him in a cooler bag, and it's just sitting in the cooler bag.
Yeah, I
And
was wondering about that.
she's like, "Oh, they're not feeding him his fruit," and like, you have to tell people there's fruit here for him. And I'm like, Mom, he can't see very well. If he's sitting in the chair, I don't think he has very much peripheral vision at all. And so I said, do you want a peach? She's go, yeah, give me one of those. So we went out and sat on a bench together and I ate a peach and he ate a peach. And I went and got us napkins. And it's like, okay, we're having peaches together. And it was a neat little moment. And so yeah, I'm just realizing we got to label things. We got to put signs up to let people know. I started labeling some other things. I had put his name on he's got some cups with straws, but they washed them and it comes off. So I was like, okay, let's put masking tape on with the label. Like, I'm not sure how else to um
So
label.
I
So,
think the thing that we kind of need to maybe talk just a little bit about is really appreciating and taking these moments that we have, because as we've seen and we've even seen it when we went through the anxiety with our daughters. th- you have these days where it's just they're not there or they're not in a good place, and you get these glimpses of moments,
and
you
really
know,
stopping to appreciate these. So
yeah,
so he wanted to speak, and part of me is a little embarrassed, like he's going to talk to the whole group. And I think the staff was off busy. I don't know. They weren't even in the room at the moment, but everybody was there with their drinks and then they came back with the food, and I'm like, I'm a little bit like embarrassed. Like he wants to give a speech to everybody. And I'm like, nobody really cares.
yeah,
Like,
they
okay. let him do this. But then when he wanted me to speak, I'm like, I'm not speaking.
Well, and so
But
it's a
to connect with him in that way, and
yeah,
then and the staff's like, oh, we thought you left because I was planning to come back. I went to the room, but then when I discovered all that other stuff, I've talked to my mom about it and just, but yeah, just like, okay, we're giving us, and I kind of, I rolled with it and he's giving a speech. And I'm like, okay, I was like, well, let's get the people in here. Let's make sure everyone's here. And then he didn't want to eat. My mom's like, oh yeah, when he spoke, he wasn't eating. Everybody else was.
yeah.
So, and he's like, how's the food, everybody? And if it's not good, we can change it. And he said, I said, and he's standing up and I'm like, let's sit down. Let me try the food and just see what we think of it. So I was like, I had to convince him to sit down at the table. I was like, here, because he's moving good today. He was walking around without his walker. So I'm like, I had to like, okay, let's sit down, let's have a seat. And, I had to, let's try the food, see what it's like, and I started a conversation with the other guy at the table and trying to engage, him in this conversation. The guy's talking about motorcycles, but my dad was still
He
prepping for
was
his speech.
he was focused on that,
I was
that.
trying to kind of shift things a little bit, but I was like, whoa, he's really steadfast because he ate a little bit and then he was back to, okay, we're going to talk. And I'm not sure where we were going with it, but
Well,
it
but
was,
it's all about the, like I say, it's about, to me, it's about taking these moments and really enjoying them, appreciating
yeah,
them, and letting them
yes,
happen versus,
yes,
you know,
yes.
uh,
And taking the time to be there with him because the last
yeah.
time I went, it was really tough when I got back. He was in a tough place and
Hmm.
he was fretting over searching for my mom because my mom had been to visit him 2 days in a row or 3 days. And she's, an hour and a half away trying to get the house ready to sell. And so then they told me when I came in that day, he was pacing the halls looking for Ellen.
Yeah. Well, he
And
had he had he had seen a lot of her over those couple of,
and
more than he had been for a while. So,
well, yeah, and it's just a change in routine and just, so I didn't know what I was going to expect when I got there. I'm like, okay. They're like, he's very chatty today. And I'm like, he called us all together for a meeting about his project. And, they went with it and stuff. And I was worried that he was the project and it was that he had to get things straight for himself. But no, and it
no,
was
he
nice to know he was in this other happy place of probably, I'm guessing it was a financial seminar. He never quite
well,
got to the meat of the material, but
and for the loved ones or the family caregivers that come in to not necessarily, I mean, not, unless they're doing something that could hurt them,
well, it's
but
it's a
to
balancing act.
yeah, to let
It
it still happen, and not want to shut
um
it down. And that, I think, myself, I might have been one to go, oh, John, we don't want to do that kind of thing, and that wouldn't have been I don't think would have been a good thing.
and so it's a balancing act of okay, he's given a seminar. Okay, how can we still, okay, let's make sure you eat first, playing along with it. And then when it was time for me to go though, I didn't want to get in a habit of saying, I'll be right back or just give me a minute. It's like, okay, I had to set him up for success that night. Okay, Dad, they're going to bring your medicine, then they're going to help you get ready for bed, and asking the questions. Are you tired? Right? Because he was antsy and fidgety, and I wasn't sure what was going on. And as soon as I said, "Are you tired?" He's like, "Very." I was like, "Okay," because sometimes I can't tell if he needs to move or his back is hurting. And then it's kind of sticking to this routine I've learned, of telling him they're going to get you, your medicine comes about 7 and then they help you get ready for bed. And so, when I come to visit him in the evening, and that's something I need to let you know, Don, when you visit him and to have that routine with him is okay, after dinner, medicine's about 7. We put Andy Griffith on. He's on TV Land. And they're going to get your medicine and then they help you get to bed. And then I exit while Andy Griffith is on. So that's probably having some routines like that, having a little bit of, routine. It's helpful to all of us, right? It helps kids to get
Hmm.
in a schedule and it really helps people with dementia to know what to expect and
Hmm.
to know what's going on. And so I'm just realizing, okay, how can I help incorporate that for him? And I'm also learning I've got to empower other people and I've got to teach others, and not feel like I have to take it on myself and do all of it and be there all the time and be everything and do everything
Yeah.
for him. I was thinking about that at work today as I was at work for my 4 hours that turned into more like 6. And someone's like, "Oh, you're going home now," because I left at whatever time it was, 1:30 or 2. I'm like, "Yeah, I'm going to take care of my dad now, right?" And a lot of times I wind up helping my dad to the bathroom, and it's like, okay, sure, I can help him, but there's also times when I can say, "Hey, let the staff do that."
Yeah.
And because he's got to get used to that because I'm not there all the time. And then I can clean up his room or I can work on something else or I could take care of myself for a minute. So setting boundaries and me educating other people, um, and just seeing how important that is because I can easily just step in and want to take care of all of it and
Yeah.
do all of it. And I'll just get that and I'll just do that. But if I'm always getting his thick and liquid drink and I'm always
Yeah.
doing all these other things, then they're not going to learn that routine. And you've got your regular people on the hall, but every so often we got someone who's from the other side of the building. And it's very different in regular assisted living versus the memory care unit. And
Well, let me
yeah.
let me take just a moment here because anybody
Mhm.
coming on, I see it looks like we have somebody coming on here. I just want to remind you, you're listening to Ask the OT with Gina Grodoff. Gina is an occupational therapist who works with the senior population, and we're here to answer questions that you might have if you are in the journey of taking care of an aging loved one. That's what we're here doing. And so if you have questions, you can leave them here in the chat at YouTube, the YouTube channel here, or you can email them to me at don@focusedhealthyfamily.com, which is also our website where you can find out more about us and what we do. Gina consults. We both do some work with caregivers and helping them out. Gina can consult with you and help you assess your situation. So again, you're with Ask the OT and with Gina Grodoff.
You're rocking. The world
Yeah,
is
no.
moving.
I came outside because we were still finishing up dinner, and it was kind of noisy in there. So I
Yeah.
decided to
Next
come
time
out
you
here.
need the platform to raise your
Yeah,
um
I know.
um
It's been a busy day for you and for us too. So
yes, it is busy and it's a juggling act, right? And it's learning, okay, we got to take care of ourselves. And it's like after this, I was like, it was almost 7 and I'm like, okay, now what do I do? Like, and I just sat in the car for a minute, like, and for a minute, I'm like, maybe I'll just sit here and do the Ask the OT from the car right here at Terabella. And then I'm like, you know what? I'm really hungry. And I had to make a decision about going home. I'm like, oh, but then I get in the middle of all the home mix. And I'm like, okay, this was my plan. Go get your salad, have some time to yourself, because I've literally been either with taking care of my dad, with the kids, or working almost nonstop for a while. And it's getting to me. I've been exhausted. I sat down to do paperwork at work a couple days ago at 9 in the morning and my eyes started closing. And I'm like, whoa, I'm falling asleep at 9 a.m. And just seeing the toll it takes and realizing, okay, I got to take care of myself and I've got to figure out what the boundaries are, what things can I do, what can I delegate? And because it's easy to just fall into that taking care of everything. And I do have supportive family members. My brother was here and he was great, and yet he's back in Pennsylvania now. My mom's busy trying to get her house ready to sell, and so that's a whole lot on her and just what she's going through with that. And my brother's been helping her. He was in person and now virtually. And letting like Don and making lists and saying, here, this is what you can do when you visit him, giving that guidance. I'm hoping to empower our grown children who have cars and jobs that they can go visit grandpa. And okay, how do we establish some kind of routine for them? Because who knows what grandpa's going to be like when they go there. And so that unknown is they're uncertain about that themselves. And
And this is a big teaching moment for them though too.
oh yeah.
And learning how to deal with you know, somebody with dementia, but just learning to deal with different kinds of situations. That it's not
Yeah.
all, that not everything goes roses and ice cream.
Well, one of our kids was like, I need something to talk about with grandpa because I need what we need an activity to do because I don't always know what he's saying and what can we, something to do. And I know the one day my brother and mom were there and there was like it was like beanbag toss with the
Hmm.
target. And so it's like, okay, having something like an activity that they can engage in together. So we need to, define what those activities are so they, know. And this is the kind of thing I've been helping other family members, their caregivers in all the different locations that I've worked at. I imagine you shared that already, Don. In my 30 plus years as an
Yeah.
occupational therapist, I've worked in acute rehabilitation, short term, long term rehabilitation. So that's what they call skilled nursing facilities, nursing homes, but not
Well,
only people who live there, but people who need just short term rehab before going home. Is somebody coming? You're
no, I got
pointing.
Aldersgate
Oh, on your
shirt.
shirt. I just saw an arrow and I'm like,
Oh, no, no.
something
Um,
back there? I've worked in home health care. I've worked in assisted livings, independent livings, right? So I have this knowledge, this experience as an occupational therapist. I spend a lot of time educating families, caregivers, and other people, as well as working one on one with patients of different diagnoses, a whole variety. And now having all this experience with my dad since his first diagnosed with Parkinson's, which is 17 years ago, and the different encounters that we're having. And now, I've worked in assisted livings, but now moving to a family member into assisted living, I'm getting a whole new eye opener of things that entail and what's involved. So I'm putting together some different pamphlets and for people to help share this information. And Don and I do speaking talks at support group meetings and other places. And to really help you and your loved one, I'd love to work one on one with you in your situation, whether it's a hour consult one time or whether we work more closely together, because
well,
it's a challenge to navigate it. I'm challenged navigating it,
yeah,
and I have all this years of experience.
I talked about before you got on about, wanting to help through the multiple transitions that you go through. And I kind of just started, because I talked about really one of the first transitions in reality is when you start one you get a diagnosis or one you start seeing the symptoms. That's a transition too, because
Mhm.
there's a big change that goes on. And then I started to talk about going from hospital to rehab, and I hadn't been able to take it any further than that. But that's one area that really needs the help because
And the
there's so
trans
much to it.
you talk about transitions, and the transitions are different for the person going through it, their loved ones around them, their spouse. The transition from this is your partner, they've been married, my parents have been married going on 59 years, but there's a point when she becomes his caregiver. And that's a transition. That's a bit of a loss, the loss of the relationship as you knew it. And we all experience these things differently. When my dad was diagnosed, he barely had any symptoms. He had this tiny little tremor in his hand, and it was very early on because I was surprised the doctor diagnosed him because there was no definitive test. It was just the symptoms. And so he started on treatment right away. But I knew in my mind, I've worked with people with end stage Parkinson's and how debilitating it can be. And so my mind, was already imagining that with my dad and where he was at. And so it was kind of a, like you talked about, just that acknowledging that. And
Mhm.
I don't know what my dad went through when he was told it was Parkinson's. Different people have different perceptions of things, and not everyone with Parkinson's gets dementia. And when my dad was dealing with dementia and he could understand that he was dealing with it, he pictured, oh, I'm just going to be like those people with Alzheimer's and pretty soon I'll know nothing and know where I'm at. And, you know, his perception of that. And then you've got my mom and her experience. So we're all experiencing it differently. Our experiences are all valid. And yet we need to recognize that it's different for me than it is for him versus other people around
Mhm.
him. And it's important to, say, okay, that's okay. He's not try to convince him his experience is different than it is, right? It's just like raising kids, Don. And I know I've shared that with you when you had your heart attack. You had the experience of having the heart attack, of passing out in our living room, going into ventricular tachycardia, being rushed to the ambulance, which you don't remember, and being waken up and being told you had had a heart attack. And I had the experience of this, my husband nearly dying, kind of pretty much almost there in the house with the kids. And so our experiences, even though they are the same sort of,
It's
it
the
looked
same. it's the same factual things, I guess. So,
Right. But it was
the
totally
event.
different. It was totally different for me. I couldn't understand what it was like for you. And you also really
Yeah,
didn't have an idea what, it was like on my end. And we've talked and we've shared, but it's kind of that recognizing that and acknowledging
yeah,
that both of those things are difficult and challenging. It's challenging to have an illness, have a diagnosis, and it's really challenging for the loved ones who are there supporting them, being a caregiver, being advocates, and yeah, we all need support.
yeah. I always, feel for your dad because there are those cognitive moments where I think he realizes kind of what's where he's at, what's going on, and to know that this doesn't feel right to him and that he doesn't, well, he tells us he doesn't really want to be there and he's bored, you know. Luckily, I guess for with the dementia that he tends to forget that,
Or
that
he thinks
or
he's
he
giving a
doesn't.
seminar. This is where we
Yeah.
really hoped that going to, because he used to go to an adult daycare. So he'd go out a couple times a week. It was a center for people with dementia. They had activities going on. They had other people. My dad's a very social guy, and COVID really messed him up cognitively because they had to stop all the activities. And our brain is a muscle like our body. And if you don't use your muscles, if you're in bed for weeks, you get weak. You can't walk well, right? You have problems. If you don't exercise your brain and do those activities, then the dementia gets worse. And that's literally what's happened with him and everyone through COVID. All these seniors who all of a sudden were not allowed to go anywhere and were on lockdown and the activities were cut off. And so he really hoped, and he got to the point with the adult daycare center that he just couldn't go there anymore. His dementia had gotten where,
Yeah.
and so we were hoping as we moved him into memory care that being around other people, he doesn't feel stuck in the house because he used to always go out the front door and I think he wanted to go somewhere. He was used to jumping in his golf cart and going somewhere. And so now it's a small unit, which I think is a good thing for him. But he can go places. He can walk to his room. He can go to the dining room. He can go in the activities. He can apparently give seminars and we can visit him. We can take him out. There's other activities that go on in the other part of the building. We can get him engaged in those things. And so, but the first couple weeks him there, it's just like, okay, I don't know if this is going to work. There's a small unit. There's not a lot that happens. And so there's like a first glimmer of hope going today. Like, okay, he can have a great day and he can have conversations with people. And a lot of the staff is just really good and supportive with him. And um, yeah. And so, it takes a village to raise kids. It takes a village to care for family members. And we'd like to help you with that journey and help support you. And so that's what Ask the OT is really all about. And my services, working with people consulting.
So that's our Ask the OT for this Tuesday. Oh, let me look up here again. Such a rush day. I didn't do as much preparation for this as I needed to, but let me look at the next time we have it, because we want to know um, the July 24th at noon. We
Okay.
have our next one, so um, we can look forward to that. And again, you can send us your questions at any time, really. It doesn't have to be on online now. If you're listening to this after the fact, you can still ask your questions. We are working slowly but surely to try to build a community of people, uh, like-minded people, to be able to support. So yes, you can email it to us at don@focusedhealthyfamily.com. You can visit our website, www.focusedhealthyfamily.com, and find out more about what we do, all the different things that we do. And like I said, if you want to have a consult with Gina, kind of get an assessment of what's going on for you, you can contact us through the website, and we'd be happy to set that up. And remember, how you speak to your kids and your family today shapes their future and yours.